Welcome to the show. This is No Interference. We are your hosts, Westside and Big Sass. Unfortunately, there'll be no Bull today. If you tuned in for that, you'll have to check back next episode. This episode will be giving our reactions to the outcomes of Week 16 and also get into some of the latest news around the NFL. We're getting close to that. We're in the playoff push. We're getting close to the playoffs. So this is it. It's going to make or break some teams, but we are going to dive into it today. Do you just want to run down, I guess, the scores first?
Yeah, that works.
And then we can get into it. So Thursday night, the Jaguars beat the Jets 19-3 in a pretty dull game, if you ask me, but that's the theme of the week, it seems. The Ravens were able to take down the Falcons 17-9. The Panthers literally ran the ball down the Lions' throat and won 37-23. Bills took care of business, beating the Bears 35-13. The Saints surprisingly hung on to beat the Browns 17-10. The Chiefs outlasted the Seahawks, winning 24-10. The Vikings got a last-second field goal to beat the Giants 27-24. The Bengals made it a little closer than it should have been, but they were able to overcome the Patriots, winning 22-18. In surprising fashion, the Texans upset the Titans 19-14. The 49ers were able to show their dominance in a 37-20 win over the Commanders. The Cowboys just barely got by the Gardner Minshew-led Eagles 40-34. Steelers got a late touchdown to beat the Raiders 13-10. The Dolphins collapsed, and the Packers were able to beat them 26-20. In a game that no one saw coming, the Rams dropped 50 on Denver, winning 51-14. Buccaneers keep their little theme going this year and winning in the end, getting the 19-16 victory over the Cardinals, and the Chargers basically just destroyed the Colts, winning 20-3. So not a lot of high-scoring games. The one high-scoring game was probably the one that no one predicted, with the Rams' defense just putting a stranglehold on the Broncos and ending Hackett's coaching career, it would seem.
Yeah, we could have kind of predicted that, right? I feel like he's been teetering with getting fired for a few weeks. Pretty sure we had him on our hot seat list months ago, it feels like. So, no surprise there. And then you're going to get you get, 50 points to the Baker Mayfield led Rams that's the final straw, because I think the reports were just recently, as of like last week, that they weren't going to make any coaching changes, and then something like that happens. You're like, never mind.
They meant they weren't going to hire a new coach. That's what they meant.
Apparently.
We can break down some more of the games that were slightly more interesting and more depth. I guess we will try and start in order of occurrence, if I can keep that straight. The Jets and Jaguars game wasn't the most entertaining game in the world. The Jaguars ended up getting the win. No real eye-popping statistics in this one, except for
weather was garbage.
Yeah, it was bad weather, but does it seal Zach Wilson's fate?
That's what the reports are. I don't know if it was today or just since the game. It sounds like he's on the outs with New York, which it seemed inevitable, which is odd just because he was a second overall. Like, is that the quickest turnaround? Not a turnaround. Is that the quickest, like, dumping of a team by a second overall pick, especially a quarterback? If it wasn't just the fact that his play, if it wasn't just for the fact that his play was poor, but also it seems like there's like, it seems like he lost the locker room, and that was
Yeah.
probably why they're like, "We gotta move on," because their their team, the Jets are kind of in a win now roster, right?
I mean, they're
Like,
ahead of
give
I think they're ahead of schedule. I think they've, other than quarterback, all of their moves, whether it be draft or free agency, have worked out fairly well. Um, they got their O line's injured. When it's healthy, they have a very good O line. Um, Brees Hall, he's hurt. Before he got hurt, he's one of the better running backs in the league as a rookie. The receiving core is solid, and the defense is, they got a. Some people have been calling it like a Super Bowl caliber defense. I don't know about that, but it is a very good defense.
yeah, I wasn't a believer in Salah even after is that how you say his name?
Yeah,
Salah? After 1 year, because I sometimes have issues with defensive coordinators becoming head coaches. I don't know why, because it's such an offensive-minded league.
yeah,
Sometimes I feel like the defensive head coaches are, like, a little bit behind when they become a head coach.
yeah.
But, I mean, they went from, like, dead last in defensive numbers to, like, top 5 across the board, it seems like, this year.
And did you see that Zach Wilson's mom apparently like posted something on social media calling out the Jets?
No,
Yeah. Well, here's my
that doesn't
thing.
help his case at all.
Just looking at this game, Zach Wilson, who played a good chunk of the game, he goes 9 of 18 for 90 yards, only 5.1 yards an attempt, one interception. He gets sacked 3 times, 41 quarterback rating. Chris Streveler, who's kind of a journeyman practice squad kind of guy, comes in for the last 3 drives, I think, goes 10 of 15, 90 yards, 6 yards per attempt. He gets 82 rating. And then he also uh, gets 9 carries for 54 yards and kind of does a poor man's Josh Allen impersonation.
Yeah, I mean, their best drive of the game, which I think is the majority of his completions and yards, ended on a 4th down, which he completed a pass to um um Garrett Wilson,
Mm.
and I think Garrett Wilson fumbled the ball. So I
Got
mean, he
kicked out
showed
of his
more
hand.
than oh yeah. So I mean, he showed more than Zach Wilson did all game, and maybe I mean, it's not all like I mean, I watched the game kind of. It was a boring game, but Zach Wilson just doesn't look like he can. He looks like if you would put somebody with our talent out there that just so happens to be able to throw the ball 80 yards,
Well,
because
this is
like
what I
he
was going to.
scrambles one way or the other to get out of a pocket or avoid the rush, and then like the most egregious one was when Wilson was wide open and he like scrambled, didn't see him, scrambled, came up to the line to gather himself and just threw the ball. There's multiple times that happened all game where like he waited until the guy was in double coverage or covered when he was open, and he just like throws it up. Um, it's like it's somebody playing backyard football. I don't know.
Yeah,
Just doesn't look
so
right.
I think, well, for one, for a guy that's almost done his second year as a starter, he doesn't seem to have any confidence. That could be partially the Jets' fault, but it's also partially his fault. He's supposed to be, when he came out of college, people were comparing him to Mahomes ish. When he scrambles, he looks like he doesn't know what to do, and I know, I feel like he has like a, what's the word? Like he has an arm, but it's like a show arm. Like
I
in
know what you mean.
walkthroughs and just sitting there messing around, he can launch the ball. But
Doesn't translate to the game.
Like you never see him. You never see him throw these like bombs that just get caught in stride downfield for long touchdowns. It's like he's always throwing jump balls.
It seems like the one play he had, was it against the Titans last year?
And it was still a jump ball to Corey Davis.
Was it a jump ball?
Yeah. Corey Davis turned around, jumped up, played it really well.
So here's a problem with Zach Wilson. And is this, I know it's not, this is just recent memory talking, but is this Josh Allen's fault? A quarterback like him gets drafted so early, who maybe doesn't show all the intangibles and, maybe being pro ready, but has like some physical tools and can throw the ball anywhere on the field in college. So teams are like, well, this raw talent, Josh Allen, it took him 3 years and a team built around him, and he put it together. So if we can just find somebody who has that raw talent, you know what I mean? It seems like that's becoming more acceptable to take risks on guys like that. And he was like the most exaggerated one to shoot up the boards. Like it was out of nowhere. Like he didn't have any amazing games from my memory at BYU. It was like his pro day or something like that was amazing.
Well, BYU also had a really good team. And yeah, his pro day, I really could care less about pro days, but people were going crazy over his pro day. But here's the thing. If you're going to sell me on a quarterback that is a toolsy guy, he's athletic, got a big arm. One, Zach Wilson, I don't know what he's listed at. I think he's listed at like 6'3", 210 or whatever. He looks really skinny in a uniform.
He looks like a kid. Well, I mean, I know he is a kid, but he looks like
he could be a senior in high school.
Like when you see him walk off, this is one of my things. And I know you could say this about any player, and like you look at him in college, you just look at him. Like he looks like somebody who I don't think is going to be. I couldn't picture myself seeing him on the podium as a franchise quarterback when I saw him in college. I could have been completely wrong, but that's just what I saw. And then his face, there's videos on Instagram and social media making fun of the way he looked in like the draft rooms and stuff. He looked at a place,
the peace sign.
Yeah, and then like on Thursday, there's a few times where he threw a pick or they didn't get a third down conversion. He was walking off the field, and he just looked like he's like looking around. He's getting booed. I kind of feel bad for him. He just looks like a kid that's like in over his head.
Yeah, so I hear a lot of people go, well, Zach Wilson's a gunslinger, so this is what you get. I don't think he's a gunslinger. When I think if you sold me that he's not at all the player I thought he was going to be. I didn't have high expectations, but I was good at Jay Cutler. Jay Cutler is one of the most physically gifted quarterbacks ever. Huge arm, had a certified laser, way faster and more athletic than people gave him credit for. I think he ran like a 4.6 40 or something, like basically around what Andrew Luck, Cam Newton ran. And he wasn't great.
He just didn't look athletic.
Yeah. He wasn't great, but like he had confidence. Like if he was going to take off and scramble, he was going to take off and get yards. If he was going to throw downfield, he was going to gun it at the receiver. A cornerback might make a great play and jump the route, but he was gunning it to the receiver. Zach Wilson, he runs around like a chicken with his head cut off, and when he basically throws punts downfield. He throws these rainbow bombs that you're literally asking your receiver to out jump two defenders to try and get the ball. And I think if I would actually applaud the Jets if they stuck to it, said we're done with him, we're going to try and find a new quarterback, because if they just hang on to him, they're just hurting the rest of their team.
Yeah, I mean, when it's time, it's time. It's hard to, like I said, poor play and just development is one thing, but not having the confidence of the players around you, especially with a team that seems poised to start making the playoffs, And I mean, just one last note, which people are bringing up a lot. Like, if they just scored like average, like 23 to 25 points a game in their last like 8 games or so, they would have so many more wins. I mean, they held the Jaguars to 19, Lions to 20, Bills to 20,
That's why Brees
Patriots to
Hall
10,
was
Bills.
so big for them, because Brees Hall was just a home run hitter, catching dump off, check downs, and just carries.
Well,
And
yeah, when he was playing in the first half of the year, they were scoring. I mean, they scored 24. Well, no, that was they lost. They scored 31, 24, 40, 27. They won a game 16-9, but that's like if you can just get a little like help your defense out a little bit, but I don't know.
yeah. Well, on the flip side, the Jaguars, they're trending in the right direction thanks to the leadership of Doug Peterson. It's a real good coaching hire. I think we all like that in the offseason. They just need to beat the Titans in week 18, and they go to the playoffs as the 4 seed. You could make a valid argument that the last 5-6 weeks of the season, Trevor Lawrence has been the best quarterback in the NFL. Like, you could make a legit argument. I think he has like 13 total touchdowns and like 2 turnovers.
Yeah, I mean, he's still having the fumble issues a little bit, but as just from a pure passing standpoint, I would say he's probably been at the very least statistically a top 5 quarterback.
Yeah, he he's on fire right now. I don't hope, being a Titans fan, I hope he cools off some, but he seems to be making the right passes, the right decisions nearly every play.
Yeah, I mean, in
Um,
the last kind of since they've started winning, they lost to Kansas City by 10, but he had 2 touchdowns, 0 interceptions. Next week, 3-0, 1-0, 3-0, 4-1. Then against New York, 0, but the weather was bad, and he made, he
he has
did
a
what he
rushing
needed to do.
touchdown.
Yeah, he completed high percentage completion, and I don't know. They've had a weird season, but they're in it, and it's been in part because of him. He's looking like, opposed to Zach Wilson, looking like worthy of a number 1 overall pick that he was, and he
um,
looks like he's you know rallying the guys. Like it looks right now. Maybe it's because when you're winning, it looks better, but it looks like the guys are behind him, and I don't know. I was really high on him coming out of college, and then I was kind of down on him last year. But obviously, coaching does affect it, and they had the Urban Meyer
the
situation.
dang Urban
And then,
Meyer.
yeah, I mean, that's a huge difference. Go from that situation to Doug Peterson. And, the Doug Peterson thing ended poorly in Philadelphia, but, he took the team to the Super Bowl. I mean, he's an ex quarterback, and sometimes just having a guy that understands your position directly, I think, helps young quarterbacks. So,
Yeah.
it's
Do I think this is a Super Bowl contending team? No, but I think it's a very good
good
offense that's
building
on the
block.
rise, and the defense just needs to improve. But if you're a Jacksonville Jaguars fan, I mean, you're on the come up.
It's literally win and they're in, right? They just need to win out.
They just need to beat the next week. Doesn't matter for the Titans or the Jags. Just week 18 is all that matters.
They play each other week 18, right?
Yep.
But they're
Yep.
both 7-8, so wouldn't next week matter?
No, because as long as whoever wins week 18
Oh, we'll
has a
have a
tiebreaker.
tiebreaker. Gotcha.
Either Jags will have the tiebreaker because
Well, what have been?
they'll have
Oh yeah,
swept.
okay, yeah. Because if the Titans lose next week, but then beat the Jaguars,
If they tie week 18, then of course whoever wins this week matters. But other than that, they're not going to tie.
yep.
But yeah. So if you're a Jags fan, enjoy it while it lasts. Anywho, next game on the schedule that we can talk about: Lions at the Panthers. Uh, Lions. The Lions came into this week on a little bit of a heater. They 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. They had won 6 of their last 7. We're making a playoff push, and they come into this game and get basically throttled by the Panthers. Dante
Yeah,
Foreman carries the ball 21 times for 165 and a touchdown. And then Chuba Hubbard goes 12 for 125. And then on top of that, Sam Darnold and Raheem Blackshear throwing a touchdown apiece on the ground. And I mean, yeah, you give up. Let me find it. You give up 320 rush yards. I'm pretty sure you're losing that game.
Yeah, this was the line, like you were saying, the Lions were on the come up, and they looked like they could miraculously squeeze into the playoffs, which they're still in the playoff picture, I believe. Yeah, they're still in 7 and 8. They just need their destiny is not really in their own hands now.
Yeah.
But giving up, that's crazy. Just their defense once again. Jared Goff had a great game. 3 touchdowns, 350 yards.
Yeah, I was
He only
looking at
took 2
that.
sacks.
I mean, I guess you could say maybe they got away from the run game, but the Panthers have a really strong front, so that's playing into the Panthers' strength. The Panthers they're not the best team in the world, but they can run the ball and they can stop the run, which that can take you. That has taken the Titans and the Ravens to many a playoff berth. So, same
Yeah,
with
I
the
mean,
Steelers.
they were in a tough position. It was 7-7 after the first quarter, and then the Panthers dropped 17 on them in the second quarter. I didn't watch the game live. I don't know. It felt like a quick like score to go up from when I was tracking the score. And I think Jamal Williams got banged up during this game, didn't he?
I'm not too sure. He may have.
I'm pretty sure he's injured right now, and he's questionable for the next week. I think it was a mid-game injury. I could be wrong. I'm trying to find it, but I don't know. The Detroit's defense has been their Achilles heel all year. There's been a few games when they've struggled to score, but I mean,
The other thing, the Panthers were able to hold Amon-Ra St. Brown to. He was targeted 13 times, and he was able to haul in 7 catches for 70 yards and no touchdowns. So, considering how the amount of targets he had, whoever was covering him, that's pretty solid work.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean the Panthers. I think you said it too. The Panthers have been playing well under what's his first name? Wilkes, Steve Wilkes.
Yeah, Steve Wilkes.
Which he's probably pushing for a potential coaching job, head coaching job next year, or with another team. I'm assuming he would stay there, but
yeah, I think he's earned a shot. I mean, I felt like
Panthers winning.
He was done kind of dirty in Arizona with the one and done.
Yep, Panthers playing themselves kind of into potential.
If they win out, they're in the playoffs. Spot. All they have to do is win out.
Yeah, because they have no, because they would still need Washington or New York to lose.
Really?
Well, as of now, Washington.
No, because if they win out, they win the division.
Oh yeah. They have 2 division games left: Tampa Bay and Saints.
Yeah, so if they win out, they go to the 4th seed.
Yep, because Tampa Bay is only 7 and 8. So if they win out, they'll be 8 and 9, and they'll have the tiebreaker over Tampa Bay.
Yep.
So that's a crap division. That's got to be one of the worst divisions in football.
Both the Souths.
It is the worst division.
So yeah, I mean, hey, I like the Lions' offense. I like what they've done. this year, but that defense just it just needs some work.
The Lions.
Yeah.
I was also going to add, impressive that the Panthers are in the picture. Obviously, the weak division, like we just said, has something to do with it. But, trading Christian McCaffrey and they fired their coach kind of seemed like a dump-off season, but they've fought and showed some will. And they got some nice pieces still.
Yeah, Derek Brown.
That Dante Foreman boy.
Honestly, for what they're paying him, I wish the
King
Titans
Henry
kept
the
him.
Third.
But yeah, no, the Panthers have some pieces, and also throw in the fact that they're completely underutilizing one of the better receivers in the league, and DJ Moore. But anywho, next game on our list, Giants at Vikings. The Vikings, they hit a 61-yard field goal with 4 seconds left to win the game. I think they said there's been 6 60-yard field goals, game winners in NFL history, and 3 of them have been against the Giants. Did you hear that?
Sorry, I had a little situation there. What was the last thing you said?
There's been 6 60-plus yard field goals, game-winning kicks in NFL history, and 3 of them have been against the Giants. One was your boy in Philly.
Jake Elliott. I remember that one.
In 2017?
It was Baltimore. Was the other one Baltimore? No, that was against Detroit.
So.
That was
Yeah.
Tucker's. It was against Detroit. I don't know. Bad luck. I mean, this one was in Minnesota indoor stadium. I don't know. I mean,
if you
tough
look
way
at
to lose.
If you look at the box score, time of possession was basically even. The plays ran were basically even. The Giants outgained the Vikings by almost 100 yards of offense, but they had 7 penalties for 63 yards, and then they had a lost fumble and an interception. So those 2 turnovers are backbreakers. If you look at Kirk Cousins, he goes 34-48, 3 touchdowns, 0 interceptions. And then Daniel Jones, 30-42 for 334. Not terrible, but 1 touchdown, 1 interception. And then Barkley, he goes 14 for 84, 1 touchdown. Not too bad. Dalvin Cook, same thing. He's able to churn out some yards, 14 for 64, no touchdowns. But the Giants receiving game, it's just Barkley, and they're just not getting a lot of downfield production. The Vikings, meanwhile, TJ Hawkinson and Justin Jefferson are just 2 very difficult covers in the league. And the turnover was don't turn the ball over and you win the game.
Yeah, I didn't watch this game live, but just looking, I saw the end of it, but looking at the stats, tough task asking Daniel Jones to throw 30 times. I mean, he had 334 yards. It's pretty good. But Saquon Barkley, I'm pretty sure he had the touchdown to tie the game, and it was like a 20. I think it was
27-yarder with 2 minutes left.
So take away that, he didn't really have that productive of a day. That would have been like 13 carries for
60
yards,
55.
So
yeah,
that's
that touchdown
still not
run
bad,
was on
but
4th and 2.
Yeah.
Also, and they get the conversion. But then,
well, here's my question. Was, to me, which the Vikings, the argument can be made is, which you can pick and choose when you make arguments. Everybody does it. We do it. Media does it. Is a win a win? Or is there a certain point where a win is not a win? Like, I think I believe in. I think at the end of the day, you want to win no matter what, and that's the most important thing. But I do believe that there are bad losses or bad wins And I don't know if I believe in much as good losses, but depending on the situation, there can be like losses that you can, take good things out of. The Vikings are 12-3. Hard to argue with that. They have a chance at the number 1 seed if Philly loses a few games or loses both of their games. But their defense just hasn't shown up this year, and the 2 times they've played, their 2 losses, they got blown out by 2 of the better teams in the NFC, Philly and Dallas. They had that barn burner against Buffalo, which they probably should have lost, but I don't want to say that. And then they lost to Detroit, which has been a high scoring offense. So I don't have the most faith in Minnesota heading into the offseason. I didn't think this game really said anything about the Giants. I mean, they're maybe going to make the playoffs, and they are what we know they are. But the Vikings, they're 12-3. They look like to an outsider, you'd be like, oh, that's one of the best teams in football. And they do have talent, which talent sometimes can trump other things when the going gets tough. But I don't know. What do you think? Do you think they could be?
The Vikings have a good offense, but like you said, the defense is a little leaky. And if they play a team, they got weapons, but the whole team basically goes through Justin Jefferson. And when you rely so much on one player, and in the playoffs you're playing almost all good defenses, and you take him away, Kirk Cousins does kind of revert back to kind of, I don't know, what the Kirk Cousins that people always joke about, where he's making bad reads, taking poor time sacks. So if you look at like the Eagles took Justin Jefferson away, the Cowboys, I'm pretty sure, took Justin Jefferson away, and then you kind of bottleneck the rest of their offense, and their defense can't keep them in games. Sure, they're capable of getting in shootouts and winning, but as good as their record is, and they're going to be probably a second seed in the NFC, one of the best records in the whole league, I could see them getting bounced in the first round.
If the format was the way it used to be, with 2 buys, and Minnesota had a bye week, and well, they're going to have home field advantage for the first game, but I don't know. I agree with you. I think I could see them, because they're playing in Minnesota the first week, and they're most likely going to be going up like as of now, they would be going up against the Giants, right? Giants are the 6th seed. Yeah, so they'd be playing
Washington.
They'd be playing Washington. So I mean, do I think they could be Washington or New York or? Now here's the thing. I think they could be Washington or New York because I think neither of those offenses are good enough. But if they go up against Seattle, Detroit, Green Bay, I think those 3 could give them issues. They all 3 have had good quarterback play this year. I know the Packers have been the Packers, and they're still a long shot to make it, but they still have Aaron Rodgers, and he's played the Vikings his whole career. So I don't know. I would like to see the Vikings dominate somebody for once rather than it always be close games.
They're the king of the one possession games this year.
Yep.
On the Giants, we've seen 3 years of Daniel Jones now.
Yep.
If you're the Giants,
He is what he is,
and he takes you to the playoffs, they'll have to decide if they want to give him his 5th year option at the end of this season. That's like $20 million for his 5th year. if you're the Giants, do you just go, hey, quarterbacks are hard to come by and we have one that we can win with? Or do you move on? What do you do?
I mean, the money's one thing, and I'm not the guy signing the checks. So from my perspective, I would just pick up the option. I would treat him as a bridge quarterback. He's athletic. He can throw the ball. Um, he's not a guy that will carry your offense. I think if you put Daniel Jones on a really good team, I think if you put Daniel Jones on the Jets, they probably have a few more wins this year. They have a really good defense.
What
They do have playmakers on offense more than the Giants do.
What if you could only pay Jones or Barkley?
For next year?
Oh,
Or,
wait.
like, do I have to pick who I want to pay? Like, I would obviously pick Saquon Barkley, but
I guess what I'm thinking is if you decide to, because Barkley got to make a decision on. So if you decide to bring back Barkley,
I would not pay top dollar for Barkley. One, because running backs have such a short shelf life anyways. He has the mileage. And even this year, I think he's played in every game, if not almost every game. He's still getting dinged up. He's got a neck thing. He had a neck thing throughout this year, I think. I wouldn't want to give him what he probably will ask for. And yeah, I mean, Daniel Jones, I wouldn't view him as anything more than a bridge quarterback at this point. I mean, they're too good to get a low or a high draft pick for a quarterback, but
I think
I
they're
don't
just
know.
stuck in an odd situation. But I guess Brian Dable has gotten them this far, so if you're a Giants fan, you kind of have to trust him moving forward.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know how Giants fans feel, but unfortunately, they kind of exceeded expectations this year. So, like you said, they're in that tough spot to where you're like, yeah, you can get players in the draft, and it's not only top 5 picks that are good, but obviously the higher up, the more surefire it is.
Is it
Um,
just fix your receiving core and hope that solves issues?
no, I don't think so. I mean, they're all. I don't think their offensive line is that great. I mean, they have 2 rookie tackles this year, so I mean, maybe they can build on that. Um, Saquon Barkley, I mean, I don't think you can rely on him. I think he had a good comeback year over the last few years, but I mean, he's been pretty unreliable since his rookie year, and he's not going to get any running backs don't get more reliable, like unless you're like Adrian Peterson or some running backs like that. They just don't play at a high level for a long time, and then they have no like they need to draft a receiver or something. So I don't know. They have a good coach. I mean, Dabble seems like he knows what he's doing. Made the most of what they have. So
That's a fair assessment. Moving on to the next game, Eagles at Cowboys. Cowboys get the 40-34 win over the Minshew-led Eagles. You're the resident Eagles fan. What was your take from that game?
I mean, any take from me is going to be biased. As you said, I'm the Eagles fans here. You don't have to say it; you can see it now. Um, but I do think I was talking about bad losses or good wins. What did I say?
Bad
Bad
wins.
wins, good losses. I don't think this is a good loss because obviously I wanted, if we had a one, we'd have the conference locked up. But within the circumstances, Gardner Minshew was starting. Um, I don't know. We had a few injuries come out of this game, which sucks. Lane Johnson and Avonte Maddox were out for the regular season, questionable for the playoffs, which really sucks for the Lane Johnson, both of them. Just to stick with this game, I think if you take away, we had 4 turnovers. 3 of them were directly involved with Gardner Minshew. One was a Miles Sanders fumble. 2 were interceptions. 1 was a botched handoff. I think with Jalen Hurts, now I'm not saying that those 2 interceptions were directly Gardner Minshew's fault. Me and you both talked about it. I think Quez
Quez,
Watkins, I think he
you
ran
gotta
poor
attack the
routes.
ball.
Yeah, I think he ran poor routes all day, and he wasn't as aggressive as he could have been. But I don't think Jalen Hurts throws either of those passes. And I think if you take all 4 turnovers directly led to points, and you can't tell me that a short field doesn't matter. It does. You're giving the defense, your own defense, a short break when you turn the ball over, so they're not rested. And a short field, when you get the ball 1st and 10, fresh offense with 25 yards to go, it's just hard for a defense to stop that. And I think they scored 20 points. I think I just said that, but they scored 20 points off
of
turnovers. So if you take 3 of those turnovers away, which I think you do with Jalen Hurts, the Eagles are probably scoring 10 points instead of no points on those turnovers. And I think you take away 10 points from the Cowboys. So I think the Eagles could have won 44-30. It could have been a blowout on the Eagles' end. Also, Gardner Minshew it was within the first 15 plays, and they had a scripted, what are those routes called? AJ Brown came in and then went out.
Like a zig, or
I don't know. He faked in, Trayvon Diggs bit, and then went
on
out.
that play, there's like sluggo.
Yeah. He was wide open. I think Gardner Minshew underthrew him a little bit, so he slowed down. He was caught by the safeties. I think Jalen Hurts throws a perfect ball. That's probably 7 points. We only got 3 points on that drive. I think it was our 3rd or 4th drive. Gardner Minshew missed Quez Watkins wide open, which it would have been a walk-in touchdown, and he overthrew him. I think that was a field goal. I think Jalen Hurts scores a touchdown on that drive. So I think Gardner Minshew played well, but I think the turnovers wouldn't have happened. The turnovers helped Dallas, not only hurt us, but it helped Dallas. And I don't know. I don't want to. I hate the Cowboys. Sorry, I'm an Eagles fan. Obviously, I hate the Cowboys. But this win is like, you can hype the win up all you want, but I don't know.
Yeah, I think it's an interesting game because Gardner Minshew, I've always been a fan of him. I think he's a legit quarterback. But the Eagles, Gardner Minshew led Eagles offense never punted. They scored or they turned the ball over. On the flip side, the Cowboys also moved the ball fairly well. There were a few plays Dak made where he broke a couple sacks that were kind of weird. They had the 3rd and 3rd. Well, we'll get to it. Maddox goes out. As soon as Maddox goes out, CeeDee Lamb goes to the slot, and they basically just target the Eagles slot corner the entire game. You go to the 3rd and 30, where they got a 50-yard catch. The Eagles were running, some invert version of cover 2 where the Eagles' new slot corner has the deep cover 2 zone, and he, for whatever reason, is just hesitant getting back. If you're rotating to the deep safety in cover 2, you have to get back. You can't be lackadaisical. That's what he was. People were saying that Slay got burnt. He didn't. He was playing the underneath like he was supposed to. He tried to turn around. He tried to turn around and make a play. After the game, if you read between the lines of his post-game presser, he was very mad about it. He basically said people need to do their job. Scott needs to get to his zone. There's no that 3rd and 30 at best should have been potentially a pass interference call, but not a 50-yard completion. That was Again, Cowboys
That was
taking
only
advantage.
7 minutes left in the game at that point too, and we were up by a touchdown. So the way the game went, not punting, or we either turned the ball over or scored. So at that point, if we got the ball back with under 8 minutes left, different game completely at that point because they ended
But
up scoring on that drive.
here's my 2 cents, because I think after this loss, people have soured on the Eagles. Assuming they
Doesn't
get
make
healthy,
sense.
for the first playoff game, or at least get Lane Johnson back. They have the best O-line in football, I think, by a wide margin. They have
We do have depth at the O line too, just in case he doesn't come back. I know you can't replace him, but
if you look at this team, you have a good O-line, a very good O-line, a good rushing attack, and a quarterback who will hurt you, puts pressure on the defense. Even for the people that think I think Jalen Hurts has come a long way and taken huge strides as a passer. His form is really good. He hits players in stride, which there's a few good quarterbacks in the league that do not do that yet. He does it. He's hardly ever off target. But besides that, even if the people that want to say he isn't that, let's just say he's not that good. He's still thrown to Devontae Smith and AJ Brown, who is a top 3 receiver tandem in the league. So, and like I think the Eagles showed that they can stop the run fairly well now. Hopefully, they get Jordan Davis back. But if the Cowboys' offense is going to be Dak Prescott's scrambling ability, peppering CeeDee Lamb in the slot, and then trying to throw a 50-yard bomb to T.Y. Hilton, like, so be it. The Cowboys are a very good team. I just think the Eagles are they're a better team. No offense to the Cowboys. I think the Cowboys are potentially the second. I think the Cowboys are the second best team in the NFC. It just so happens that the Eagles are the number 1 team.
yeah, I mean it is what it is. I'm going to sound like a Cowboys hater because I'm an Eagles fan, but take away the Eagles have been getting it's like the Eagles are garbage now. The media and stuff, not all media, but some media are like
they're damaged goods.
Yeah, but like Colin Cowherd today was saying, the Eagles are they were an early season team.
Yeah, they
I'm like,
peaked
what are you
too
talking
soon. I was
about? They've been
watching
playing
that.
good all year except for the Commanders game. The 2 games they've lost, they had 4 turnovers and they still were in position to win at the end of the game. One of them, Jalen Hurts wasn't responsible for in the Washington game for really any of the turnovers except for the 1 pick, but it was still a good throw. In the Dallas game, he didn't even play. Also, the Dallas Cowboys, terrible pick 6 in the beginning of the game that Prescott threw to Josh Sweat to put us up 10-0. After that, the Cowboys pretty much had a perfect game. They got 4 turnovers. Dak Prescott was pretty much like unstoppable against the zone.
Best game of the year probably for Dak.
It was probably the best game of the year for the Cowboys, except for they gave up 34 points, but that's my point. As good as they played, and people were talking about how well they played, we were 20 yards away from winning the game with Gardner Minshew. And yeah. So,
And I will say I did question
worried.
the Eagles' play calling on that last drive after they got the first down to Devontae Smith and checked the ball with 1 timeout. I didn't like the play call. And I know 2 of the 3 plays, Minshew got pressured, potentially because Lane Johnson was out and the Cowboys were attacking the 1 weak spot on the O-line. But I think they had a timeout in their pocket. They're on the 20. I know it's Lane Johnson. It's Minshew, not Hurts, but I would like to have seen something to attack the middle of the field, burn that timeout, and then give Minshew 2 or 3 shots from the 10, which I would like. I think that would have been a better game plan, but it's hindsight.
Yeah. Yeah, one other thing too is the Jalen Hurts factor. Is you could obviously see it in the run game. I mean, we pretty much weren't able to run the ball. Miles Sanders ran 20 times for 60 yards. It was a lot of different kind of runs than we're used to seeing with Jalen Hurts. Either it was the read options, but they weren't read options. Gardner Minshew was never going to take the ball, or it was a lot of straight handoffs from under center, which we don't do a ton of with Jalen Hurts. Really, I don't think the Eagles do a ton of under center unless Jalen Hurts is going to QB sneak it. So that's I like Miles Sanders. He's had a good year. It's not just Jalen Hurts that's causing him to have a good year, and the O line is good, but you can obviously see from this game that Jalen Hurts means a lot to the run game, and that would have been able to keep the ball away from the Cowboys a little bit more.
The other thing, which you saw in the first game, with Jalen Hurts in the run game, you can basically freeze out a defender. And in the first game, the Eagles pinpointed where Parsons was lining up, and they were basically able to just take him out of the game because they were isolating him in the reads and the RPOs, and he basically just got stuck on an island and had barely any impact until later in that game when Lane Johnson got hurt. But even then, the Eagles were able to, because of Jalen Hurts and his rushing and quick reading ability, they are able to say, who's your best defensive lineman? Okay, it's Parsons. He's right there. Okay, we're going to run this play and just completely neutralize him. You can't do that with Gardner Minshew.
Mm-hmm.
But like I said, I think the Cowboys are potentially the second best team in the NFC. I just think the Eagles are number one. So not hating, just that's how it is.
Yep. I'm not worried.
Moving on. A next game that was pretty interesting from this weekend. The Packers went down to Miami and got a 26-20 victory over the Dolphins. Dolphins have now dropped 4 straight, albeit to 4 good teams. They've still dropped 4 straight, taking them to 8-7. Before we even get into this game, it looks like Tua potentially suffered another concussion, and debatably played the whole second half concussed, which also potentially led to all the turnovers and just god awful passes. But isn't that just such a bad look for the Dolphins after all the issues they had early this year, and then it happens again?
Yeah, seems like that's been one of the main talking points today for this game in the Dolphins. But I don't know. It's a tough position because from the highlights that I watched, I didn't watch the full game. We see what the TV shows us. Unless you're live, unless you're at the game or you're on the sideline, you see what the TV shows you. And I mean, guys hit their heads on the turf all game, every game. Jalen Hurts has done it a few times this year. I'm just saying that because I've watched every Jalen Hurts play this year. And he gets up and he's fine, and he has had no concussion issues this year. Apparently that was the play where he got tackled and smacked his head into the ground. But if you watch the play, he got up, he played. So if he never wobbled, he never did anything that showed symptoms. If he himself didn't have symptoms at the time. I know there's a spotter for concussions. Is it a team by team basis or is it like an NFL?
I think it's like a third party spotter.
Third party guy. So you could say that guy, he could be like, hey, that guy, Tua just smacked his head on the turf, pull him out of the game and put him in concussion protocol or check him out. But I mean, guys hit their heads on the turf or grass every play.
It's also very possible that he did get checked, and at the time he passed.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know what goes into later the checks. On.
Yeah, it just could like that. A lot of times, there's been quite a few players who have finished games, and then all of a sudden on Monday or Tuesday at practice, they don't practice and says concussion. So who knows? what was being talked about often today was this is this could be his third concussion of the year. Are you forced essentially to sit him out the rest of the season?
I don't think you're forced to do anything. I think it's up to.
Well, there are some reports that the NFL might step in and say, no, he can't play anymore.
I mean, if he passes concussion protocol, I don't see how the NFL can do that. It's
Well, there
Tua's.
is, I don't know all the details. There is science that shows if he were to have 4 concussions in this window, it will have a dramatic impact on his future livelihood.
So I think, yeah, not saying anything like I'm not saying he shouldn't play. I'm just saying if he's passing concussion protocols, he checks out for what the league standards are to play, and he wants to play. And the Dolphins are, hey, this says he's good to play. I don't know. I don't think the NFL should be able to come in and say no. Like, I would have no problem if Tua came out tomorrow and said, I don't think Tua would release that statement. It would obviously be the Dolphins. But if Tua wanted to sit out the rest of the year, I don't think anybody would blame him. Or if the Dolphins could want to protect him from himself. Be like, hey, you're not in the concussion protocol anymore, but yeah, you know, like they could do what you just said. You had 3 concussions in 2 months. For your own good, we want to sit you out. But, you know,
Yeah, there was
how what's the motive behind these franchises? Obviously, it's case by case, you know. I'm not saying the NFL is evil, but or these franchises and owners are evil. Obviously, some, bad images and whatnot. But I don't know. It's just a tough
there was
situation when it's a player's brain.
there was a doctor. I don't remember what his name is. It was on. I was watching the show months ago, and it was
Years.
after. No, it was after his second concussion, and that doctor was saying based on what he had available, so he didn't have like insider knowledge, but based on what he was able to see and guesstimate for himself, he said after the second concussion, he would recommend Tua take off the rest of the season. So now you have a third concussion. It's just interesting, and it's just the Dolphins. It's just like, is it just dumb luck, or are they just bad at handling this stuff?
I mean,
Some players are just prone to concussions. Look at Wes Welker.
that's what I was about to say. I mean, literally, like Tua's. All 3 of his concussions have been the same exact thing. He hit the back of his head on the turf. I see it happen all the time. I've seen it happen with Jalen Hurts multiple times this year. He pops right up. He looks fine. He probably is fine. Tua, maybe that first one was bad. He got up. He looked like, he just got KO'd in a boxing match stumbling around. He didn't get pulled out of the game. So, I mean, maybe repetitive hits on the same part of the brain. I don't know.
Do you think you ever had a concussion in your life?
I don't know, to be honest, what defines a concussion, but I've heard that you can get concussions if you have to know if a concussion is if determined if you can determine a concussion by saying like you would be able to physically tell, I would say probably not. But I've slipped on a slip and slide and smacked the back of my head into the ground, and it hurt, but I didn't feel woozy or dizzy or anything afterwards. I've got hit right in the bridge of my nose playing basketball by somebody's elbow, and I don't know. I feel like my brain's probably been rattled, and I would say whose brain hasn't been rattled, but I don't know. Concussion? I don't know.
Fair.
I would like to see the definition. Can I look up a definition of a concussion really quick?
Yeah. While you're doing
Because
that, I think I have had one concussion that I feel like I for sure had one concussion in my life. And I was in lacrosse, got hit in the side of the head, and I fell on the ground, and I couldn't stand up for like 10 seconds.
see, that sounds like a concussion.
Based on what I know, was not diagnosed. I kept playing too. I got up, finished the
Well, yeah.
play, kept playing the game. Even 15 years ago when we were in high school, I didn't know what a concussion was. I thought concussion. I thought concussion to me was you getting knocked unconscious and like had to be stretchered off the field. That's what a concussion was to me, literally 15 years ago, which is not that long ago.
Mhm.
But yeah, I think I got clocked one time. I think maybe that's the only time I ever think I've got a concussion. I think I have a pretty thick skull, but yeah,
I can't
this
find
is
the definition of a concussion. I found symptoms, but yeah, I mean, you said lacrosse. I didn't play lacrosse a ton. You played a lot more than me, but similarly, I mean, I got hit in the head really hard once. I fell over backwards. I'm pretty sure I got up after a few seconds. We don't have to detail what happened in that play because we know But I would say I mean, that's what they say, right? That these NFL players, they're smashing each other's heads constantly. That that's enough to give you CTE or brain issues, right? It doesn't have to be you get knocked out and you see stars or you go out for a few seconds. Same with boxing and I think in UFC. Like it's not that one big concussion that like shuts your brain off, but it's the repetitiveness of it. So,
yeah. It's all the
so
little hits over time. But I
yeah.
mean, anywho, we're going to talk about this probably in like 10 minutes anyway before we end the show. So, but yeah, Dolphins kind of collapse at the end of the game. Tua turns the ball over. Packers stay alive. Packers keeping their playoff chances going. Um, the
Tough break for the Dolphins. I thought if the Packers were everybody was saying they were going to make a run, I thought they weren't. I didn't think I thought the Dolphins was like the one. Yeah, I was like, they're not
yeah,
going to be
I
able to
didn't
beat
think
the
they could get past.
Dolphins.
I thought the Dolphins had too much firepower.
Yeah. Now that they've
Um,
beaten the Dolphins, I mean, they have the Vikings and the Lions. Neither defense is that good. They could.
what's up with
it'll- the-
Aaron Jones? Doesn't it feel like Aaron Jones hasn't just disappeared lately?
I think he's been nicked up. I think he got injured against the Dolphins.
And then to make matters worse, AJ Dillon, like I feel like, and I don't even have stats to prove this. I feel like every time I see AJ Dillon go for like a goal line touchdown, he gets stuffed.
Yeah,
As big
he's
as he is, I feel like more than any running back in the league, AJ Dillon on 4th and short or on a goal line attempt is just trash.
yeah. Their whole offense has had a tough year, and I don't want to talk about AJ Dillon having a tough year.
It
But
does
we, I
seem
mean,
like
we coming into the year, we thought that was going to be their offense with not as many, with
I
Devontae
thought it was
Adams
going to
being
be.
gone. There's going to be smash mouth football.
I thought it was going to be
Aaron
like the
Rodgers,
2018 Titans.
yeah,
Two good running backs and have your quarterback just make a few big throws. It does seem like that Aaron Rodgers is kind of heating up at the right time, though. And if he gets into the playoffs, I mean, he is dangerous.
yeah. I wouldn't want to play, Aaron Rodgers or Tom Brady in the playoffs, but I don't know. It's
Yeah.
going to be if they can beat Minnesota and Detroit and they score a lot, then
Well,
I'd be concerned about playing them in the playoffs.
they
They
finally
also need,
got Romeo Dubs. So now they have Dubs and Watson. I mean, I don't think they've had them together for most of the season.
anything's possible.
Well, moving on. The next kind of interesting game we had on the schedule were Broncos at Rams. Christmas night or whatever. Rams win 51-14. Pretty disaster game for Broncos. Rams led 36 to 23 minutes, time of possessions. Broncos put up 323 yards, but they had 6 penalties for 55 yards, and they had 4 interceptions. 3 by Russ and 1 by Rippin. On the flip side, Baker Mayfield, 24 of 28, 230, 8 yards an attempt, 2 touchdowns, no interceptions, no sacks, 124 quarterback rating. And where is that? Cam Akers against a stout Broncos defense, 23 carries, 118 yards, 3 rushing touchdowns. Congrats to anyone in fantasy that's actually started him.
Yeah, unlikely.
I'm pretty sure
Really,
I have him, but I'm not in the playoffs.
yeah, I mean, kudos to the Rams for scoring well and Baker Mayfield, but obviously the story behind this game is, Hackett's now fired. Russell Wilson looked like hot garbage like he has the whole year. His picks were terrible. Did you see the one he threw to he was throwing to the tight end, I think, on a little hook curl route, and there was a guy behind him and then a linebacker lurking to the left, and he just didn't, I guess he didn't see the linebacker and he just threw it, and it was an easy pick.
Is Wilson cooked?
I want to see what he looks like next year with a
Because
new
you're stuck
coach.
with him. Like unless he decides to retire,
Yeah,
you're
they're
stuck
definitely
with
stuck.
him.
Yeah.
They have pieces. Javonte Williams will be back next year. They can make some
He was
improvements on the O line. They got Jerry Jeudy, Greg Dulcich at tight end. He looks like a pretty solid tight end as a rookie. They have what's the other receiver?
Cortland Sutton.
Cortland Sutton's a good receiver. It just looks so out of sync. The one story came out today that their owner came out and was like, the next coach is going to report directly to me.
That's never a good sign.
So yeah, that's what I was thinking too. Some people I've heard some people say, "Oh,
Well,
Sean."
the report of Nick Sirianni when he got hired by the Eagles was that he was pretty much a yes man for Howie Roseman and our owner, but that hasn't really turned out to be the case. But maybe it has. But he's still successful. I think Russell Wilson's. There's been reports this year too that Russell Wilson hasn't adjusted to the playbook. He hasn't understood concepts, and he's apparently used like audibles from Seattle. Like, can you imagine being like a running back and he's like,
Hot route. I don't understand you. What are you talking about?
yeah, like if he's like, I don't know, like that's just weird to me. Like, was he that much of a product of Pete Carroll's coaching and the system they had there, and that pound the ball and they threw it deep a lot. But I mean, the
Yeah,
Broncos have the recipe for that kind of offense.
Who's the Quinn? Dan Quinn's the Cowboys defensive coordinator.
Mm-hmm.
They were talking about bringing him in because he has a history with Russ.
I don't
He's
like
a defensive guy, so he can work with their defense, which is their strength. And then he has some ties to play callers that Russ had while in Seattle. He could bring in one of them as their offensive coordinator. No.
No, what you don't want to replicate what he had in Seattle. If Russell Wilson can't pick up a new offense, then he is cooked and he should be done. I think it was mentioned today that maybe the Broncos want to try and get Sean Payton. I would say get Russell Wilson, the best play caller you can, and if that doesn't work, then it doesn't work, and he like you said, he's done. I mean, if you hire a guy like Dan Quinn, I don't know. This year is a disaster. I thought they would, not just me. I mean, a lot of people thought they would be a contender. Just a disgrace.
Yeah, I'm trying to pull up Russell Wilson's stats.
They're not good. I don't even know if he has more than like 11 touchdowns or something.
He has 3,000 yards, 12 touchdowns, 9 interceptions.
Garbage.
Yeah. For reference, he has a 64 rating on Pro Football Focus. I think honestly his little celebrity persona, whatever he's doing, he went from seeming like such a genuine guy his early years in Seattle, like just a chill like baller, and now it's like it's like he's a actor who's trying his best to portray what a football player would act like.
Yeah, did you hear what he said a couple days ago?
No.
They were asking him about his injury. He was like, I don't know. I heal faster than the normal person or something like that. I got Wolverine blood.
I was going to say
what
that.
In the
I
world?
didn't even know the quote, and I was going to be like, "What do you say? He's a Wolverine?"
Yeah, he's like, I got Wolverine blood in me. I was like, it's like he's always trying to look impressive.
Did you, not to get off topic because we are coming to the end? Did you see? I saw a Hugh Jackman interview, and he said that when he got hired as the part for Wolverine, he didn't know that a Wolverine was a real animal.
He didn't know a Wolverine was a real animal?
He thought it was like a made-up animal, so he studied wolves. And so when he went to do his like the pre-shoots or whatever, he was like acting real animalistic, which is like Wolverine does, but he was acting like, he said he studied wolves for like 2 weeks.
So it ended up helping him?
Well, he said that he was like hunching over and like keeping his head down, and the director's like, "What are you doing?" He's like, "Well, wolves, when they're hunting, they keep their eyes down because they're trying to get scent. So I'm trying." And they're like, "Why a wolf? It's a Wolverine." He was like, "Well, Wolverines aren't real." And the director was like, "Yeah, they are."
That's hilarious.
And he said that's how he found out that it's a real animal.
That's funny. I mean, you could kind of see it in his acting that I don't know, maybe it helped him. Right,
Yeah,
huffing and puffing and growling and stuff.
I feel like someone maybe in Russell Wilson's inner circle that wants the best for him just needs to slap some sense into him.
Whoever it is, his publicity guy,
wake
if
up,
he has
stupid.
one. Yeah, I mean, I don't know if football players should have publicity people, but if he does have one, they should be fired. Like the meme where Batman's backhanding Robin.
Yeah.
Like he needs somebody there for him, just like you said, to do that.
He's just the Subway commercial. It's just he's out of his mind.
You're right though. There's been a 180 in like mine and yours and everyone else's, I'm sure, like view on him. Unless you knew him or you played for Seattle, it just looks like a completely different player.
I mean, all these stories have came out saying like, "Well, this is Russ," and I'm like, maybe it is, but he must have been pretty good at hiding it. And like maybe this is him, and he just finally was just like, "I got paid, I'm gonna be me." And all these years of the whole let Russ cook finally just snapped.
He did. There were moments of like embarrassing, quirky things he did when he was in Seattle, but it just didn't seem as egregious. It just seemed like, oh, that Russell Wilson.
Yeah. Oh, that
now
Russell
it's
Wilson.
Like,
well, he has 30 touchdowns, and we're in the playoffs. Who cares? Now it's like, okay, he's hot garbage. We're not putting up with this.
Yeah, even like without, it does help when he's playing well, but even without that, he just seemed like kind of like funny. Like now it's just like,
I really wish I could go back in time and be in the huddle for the Seahawks Super Bowl against the Patriots, just because it would make my existence hearing Pete Carroll go, "All right, we're gonna do a halfback dive to Lynch," and Russell Wilson's like, "Screw that, I'm winning this game."
Who knows?
But
Richard
yeah,
Sherman's face on that play is my face every time I see Russell Wilson now.
yeah. Well, anywho's the last game to wrap up for the week. The last game of the week. Chargers at Colts. Chargers get a 20-3 win. Pick off Nick Foles 3 times. I mean, I think, like you were saying earlier, I think this is actually a bad win for the Chargers. Like, they, in theory, outmatched the Colts, but, like, they had the ball for 33 minutes, put up 300 yards of offense, scored 2 rushing touchdowns, but the Chargers still themselves had 2 turnovers. Um, and
Yeah, I
then
mean, Herbert didn't even throw for a touchdown.
Yeah, Herbert, he was 24 of 31 for 230 and an interception. Austin Eckler averaged only 3.7 a carry on 18 carries. He got the 2 goal line touchdowns. Um, and then Keenan Allen had like a okay day, 11 catches for 104 yards. But I I just feel like this Chargers team, for as much talent as they have, and we've talked about the Chargers a lot on the show, just saying how they're cursed or whatever, but I still don't trust them. Uh, I don't know how you think, but
No, I think they'll probably be one and done in the playoffs. I don't think they've done a good job coaching. I still don't like Staley. Unfortunately, he probably saved himself a year by making the playoffs.
they could do like Mike Mularkey in Tennessee. He made the playoffs, got a playoff win, and they still got rid of him for Mike Vrabel.
I mean, yeah, I mean it's possible. It's just, I mean, he's a younger coach, so I just don't think that'll happen. And it's only his second year. But um, I my only takeaway from the whole thing with them making the playoffs is I'm happy Justin Herbert's in the playoff. He deserves to be seen on that stage. He's talented. Um,
I think it's a little overrated.
he's, I don't know. Let's see what he does in the playoffs. I mean, yeah, do they have weapons around him? I mean, he's performed, and I've never watched a game where I was like, ugh, Justin Herbert was like the reason the entire game they were garbage. Like earlier in the season, he threw the pick six to the Chiefs, which that essentially cost him the game. But he doesn't have a ton of those moments, and he doesn't ever look he doesn't ever look flustered in games over his head. He takes shots. He slings the ball still. It doesn't look like receivers or players are coming up to him like, oh, what are you doing? Um,
I mean, no, he's not bad, but I just feel like people always put him up there in the Mahomes, Allen, Burrow category, and I think he's
I mean,
not there.
he's put up stats in this league, really good stats. He had almost 40 touchdowns and 5,000 yards. He has the physical tools. He can throw the ball harder than anyone. Um, I don't know. I mean, you can never know unless you unless you switch, you know, him for a different team, and we won't know that. But I mean, I would like to see how he performs in the playoffs.
Yeah. Um.
No faith in the Chargers. I don't think they'll win.
Yeah. Well, on the flip side, with the Colts, I mean, I looked like you brought in a quarterback that hasn't got any action this year, and this is what happens.
It's
Colts offense isn't good. The run game wasn't really effective. I thought their defense. I mean, their defense was okay, but this is just a throwaway year for the Colts.
They apparently wanted to start Nick Foles to be able to start taking shots downfield, and he had
Well,
three.
that
Huh?
worked well.
Yeah, he had 3 picks in the first quarter, I think, or first half, and they were all deep shots. And I watched some of the game, and he didn't look good, but I mean, it's not his fault. He has barely played the last few years, and nobody could perform in this Colts offense this year. Um, I don't think Jeff Saturday should be back. This like it's just weird what he's trying. Like, try the young quarterback on the roster if you're gonna just do this. Like, I don't know.
Yeah.
Lost calls for the Colts. Get a new guy to run the team next year. Change the culture. Try to find a quarterback, I guess.
So the one thing I did want to talk about was, did you see the Derwin James hit?
Yeah.
On Ashton Dulin?
Yep.
That was, I think, the first hit I've seen in the last 2 years where I was like, that's an ejection.
He got ejected.
I know, but that was the first hit I've seen where immediately I went, he's ejected. Like, typically when player gets ejected, I'm like, I don't know if he deserved it. That was literally the Brandon Merriweather hit from the 2000s, which the league literally said that's the hit we're trying to get rid of. He lowered his head, was looking at the grass, and just torpedoed right to the side of the head of Dulin. Both players seemed they were a little rung up by the hit as expected. But I don't see how I've seen most people agree with the ref's call. I just don't see how you could look at that. I saw some people online complaining. They're like, "Is this football or what?" And it's like, no, that's a egregious hit in today's football, in today's league.
Yeah, I mean, the football is what it is now, and that hasn't been a hit that you allow for years.
The worst part is Derwin James, and I love Derwin James. He's a great player. He's a freak athlete among freak athletes. But he literally got up after the play, got flagged, and immediately he's going, it's all shoulder. And they showed a replay, and I was just like, no shoulder at all.
I couldn't find a slow motion video of it because I saw the highlight of it. I could not find a slow-mo zoomed in video of it, but just from the regular play, you could tell. And he got up and was wobbly around, so he probably had no idea what happened when he was talking to the ref.
I'm pretty sure he got right away put in a concussion protocol.
Yeah, he probably had no idea what he was talking to the ref. He had no idea what happened when he was talking to the ref.
Especially after the drive before, he had that great sideline interception where he gets his knee in, and but
it was just like a shark or a drop of blood in the water, and a shark just, like, the running back went to the flats, and he's a safety like a bullet out of a cannon or out of a gun.
That's
whatever.
Like I wish
the metaphors are all messed up right now. But
if we had RJ,
he couldn't stop himself.
If we had RJ on the show, this is like when we were playing backyard football with RJ, where if there's a receiver in front of him, he's instant hit, just hits it immediately.
Yep.
But yeah, that was a big talk today, and I think most of the time when a player has been ejected, or sometimes on those flags where I think in real time you can't tell, and then of course when you slow it down, you're like, okay, yeah, that's a penalty. But some of the time I think that it's like, as a defender, if you're being asked to make these split-second decisions against receivers who are running lightning quick and contorting their body in all these ways, you are in a rough spot. But this was one of the first times where I was just like, okay, the defender's in the wrong.
Yeah, I'd agree.
But yeah, anything else you wanted to get into today?
I think that wraps it up for the recap.
Alrighty, so that's our week 16 recap. That's going to wrap up the show. Hope you enjoyed it. If you did, make sure to go follow us on our social media accounts on Twitter and Instagram at the NI Show. It's down the bottom, your bottom left corner if you're watching. And whether you're listening or watching, we're available on both YouTube and Spotify. Again, if you enjoyed what you heard or saw, make sure you like, subscribe, follow, all that good stuff. Thank you for tuning in. We hope you enjoyed the episode. We'll see you next time. I want to include, I am wearing my Christmas No Interference quarter zip gift from my mother-in-law. So yeah, hopefully maybe we can get some more of these to get out there to anyone who wants some nice no interference swag. But that does it for the show. So adios.
See you later.